Hi everyone, this is Cecilia Ding coming to you from Beijing, China on another morning for my heart check-ins. And today wanted to share with you some of the difficult emotions I've been going through in regards to my partnership with my husband and in navigating that on a daily basis. I'm hoping this can be an authentic exploration about how we manage those ups and downs in couples relationship. And as I'm talking to you, I am experiencing some of that somatic symptom of stress um, and just tension in my stomach and in my heart. So I know it's affecting me. Um, and I know that as someone who is often looked to be the expert in talking about or guiding couples through their relationship difficulty, um, I want to be very authentic and in this vulnerability that we all go through difficulties and no one have a smooth sailing when it comes to long-term relationships or even short-term relationships. Relationship absolutely needs work, and romance absolutely needs commitment. So I wanted to use myself again as that life case study to um, also walk through some of the toolboxes I use to manage a situation like that. In fact, today I'm going to walk myself through the 4 step I often share with others in managing these ups and downs. So I'm going to share my screen. So the Sage 4 steps, for those of you that have heard of it, I use the same ones for whether we're parenting or we're nurturing ourselves for self growth or for couples. And the terminology all the same. The SAGE stands for secure, accept, guide, and embody in this clockwise order as a way to guide the sequence of our action. And as you can see through these errors, that it's a continuous loop because we rarely just go through, a situation or conflict in our relationship once. And often it takes multiple times or possibly a lifetime to continuously adjust to changes and to improve on the ways I manage the situation. I know I have improved in the 15 years with my partner because I do believe that if this was even 5 years ago, we would have had a lot of louder, bigger conflict and argument. Now, even as I'm feeling some of this void and this distance, which is at the core of um, the challenge that I'm going through with him, I'm not, I am much more aware that the first step I need to do is to do that checking with myself. Just as right in the beginning, I mentioned I'm looking at my body and feeling my body, like what is going on with myself. Because often it's so easy to project a lot of what's truly going on internally onto an external party. And who best to choose for that than the people that's closest to us, whether it's our children or a partner, they're the easiest target. So I really want to make sure that I truly understand the extent of how much this void and anxiety I'm feeling. It's about truly about the relationship versus myself. And just to elaborate a little bit more, excuse me, I have a little bit of a sort of a sticky throat. Just to elaborate a little bit more about what my heart is feeling is this distance, this emotional gap that is affecting our intimacy. We haven't had um, sort of an overt conflict or anything we about our life or about our child that we disagree with strongly. There's no theoretical or philosophical sort of forks in the road, so to speak. But this feeling of distance, of not being close, which has always been a struggle along the way, but I'm just feeding it so much more vividly and so much more viscerally, rather. I think that's a better term. And as I'm talking, I'm checking in with myself. I need to first to be aware this physical and this emotional distance and void of intimacy I'm feeding. How much of it is about myself? Because part of what's creating this distance and lacking in intimacy, of course, is our busy schedule, our respective careers, his responsibility at his job, and my explorations in building my practice and working with clients and building my own schedule. And I do have to be honest with myself that perhaps some of that is I make new changes, directions in specializing more in working with couple and adults in midlife, in transitions, in career development. That's a new path for me. As I explore this, there's a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty. And I must be honest with myself that part of that is perhaps easily projected onto what's lacking in our relationship, is emblematic of what I might be feeling lacking in myself. Perhaps some lack of belief, some fear of not being able to do exactly as I would like to, as we all have self-doubts from moment to moment. And it's in getting in touch with that then I can, like an emotional bubble, start to um, break it. And you notice as I am checking in with myself, I'm beginning to have a little bit of an easier smile, because when I can get in touch with what's inside of me, then it's much easier for me to work with that than to say, oh, it's, him not connecting with me, and then I got to work on him. And I have much less control in that case. Of course, it is not black and white, and it's never 100%. Of course, there is recurring, perhaps difficulty in establishing some of that intimacy when we have such busy schedule, and we do collaborate very well in co-parenting and really having very little time left. And then what's left is for our self-care. And since so often many of us do self-care differently, whether we're relational or we are internal processor, whether we are a communicator or we like to uh, manage or regular emotions through other things. This is all different and no better or worse, but we can become very mismatched in the ways we connect. So as I am moving down and thinking and really mostly feeding my way through this, I have to accept what I had just come to realization was, and accept that there's a lot of internal struggle that I am managing at the same time as a busy domestic schedule, as well as this desire and need in wanting to connect with my partner. And you notice I stopped talking for a bit because I often try to remind myself a lot of the processing is not verbal. Just as in sessions with whether it's couples or individuals, a lot of times silence, give more room to the body to do some somatic releasing. Now, I'm not going to leave you hanging for long, but normally off screen, I probably take at least 20 minutes, even an hour, if I really feel like there's a lot. And it does feel like there's a lot in my stomach in this moment. And I want to give plenty of time to the secure and accept portion, because it's only in checking in with myself to make sure I understand exactly what's going on with myself, and then moving on to the action step, the actually, whether it requires reaching out or communicating. After I have accepted and making sure I feel connected and safe with myself. Because often what I have found is that in the first and second step, that I actually have a lot of things that I haven't accepted. Maybe I don't accept my fear. Maybe I don't want to get in touch with my self-doubt. I don't want to check in with that because it's hard to feel that. As humans, we want to get away from the uncertainty and all of that buzzing inside. And it's so much easier to project out and to get causes from external causes. So in releasing that and accepting that, a lot of the fear of not being good enough, and often there's a lot of shame in that. And I certainly have found that with my clients as well, in the doubting and wondering whatever we want to do is our own goal. And particularly the timing of this is not lost on me in the beginning of 2024, where, at the beginning of the year or end of the year, we are all kind of doing a subconscious mental check on where we are and whether we're happy with ourselves. And as someone who grew up admittedly with an wounded overachiever syndrome, where a lot of my conditional love came from achieving, I am wondering if I am losing some of that love I have developed for myself over the years, because there is a critical judge somewhere inside of me. And that can be projected onto a partner who might simply be temporarily busy and more involved with his own work. Because as I said, this kind of disconnection certainly has happened in the past, but we find ways to reconnect and manage through it without me stepping into this strong somatic reaction. So this is where I stop at this moment, because I don't believe I'm ready to guide myself into talking about it and communicating about it, because I need time to really sit with this feeling. I think as someone who's very relational, who's very empathetic, it's very easy for me as a default to reach out, to talk about things, to discuss, to explore. But part of what I have been, part of my self growth is to then making sure I am first doing that processing for myself. Because even though this is about couples, and in particular, Michelle Obama has actually inspired me in some of the things she candidly shared about what she learned at couple counseling, which is, even though there are issues that both sides contribute to and both sides have to make steps to grow together, ultimately we're all responsible for our own for our own emotional happiness and regulation. At the end of the day, it's only after I have released and connected with whatever is inside of me, bring myself back to an emotional equilibrium or homeostasis, then I'm in the right zone to then be able to guide myself through whatever way I want to communicate, collaborate, and reconnect. Because any time before that, it's very easy that we can shorten, undermine how long these two steps take, and then take a lot of that emotional baggage into the communication, do a lot of blaming, a lot of sort of even silent violence, such as passive aggressiveness, and then in the process undermine whatever reconnection we might ultimately, really appreciate and need, because the other side would feel more of the attack rather than the vulnerability. So, this is where I am in this moment. And I didn't plan this, but I feel like I'm not ready for step 3 or 4. And it might be days before I'm ready. It might be that I need actually someone else to help me to work through this process, to help me recognize my blind spot. Because therapists are not, as a wife and a partner, my emotional brain, my fight and flight might be activated much more. Not might, but actually is activated much more. So, as we all know, we can't be our own therapist. So yeah, this is where I am with this process, and I hope that being vulnerable with you about this process that I am guiding myself through allow you to see how much we do have control in this process, how much we don't need to depend on others to respond, to fix us, to regulate us. We can survive through this. We can get through it and come out and be stronger, more self-reliant, and then be more ready for connection. And needing and wanting connection is different from relying on it for our own happiness. This is my journey towards that as well. And connection or self-processing, wanting to communicate or wanting to process ourselves, none of that, I emphasize again, has a better or wrong way to it, or uh, the best way or the second best way. It's about what works for us, and then there's what works for the couple. Because if one is extremely relational and one is extremely avoidant of communication, then both have to come towards the middle. On the other hand, if you're much likely to be on the similar spectrum, whether a little bit more avoidant or oversharing, then you could still work it out in your own way. There is really no standard for what's the right way. So here's me, still a work in process in figuring out this emotional way. And hopefully I'll come back for another heart check-in, let you know how and when I did get to that third step.